Then I'm going to start up.
For the strong, not the weak.
Hello, hello, hello. Let me get to the real beginning now.
No escaping this. 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 No one's ready to deal with us. No escaping this. No escaping this. No escape. No one's ready to deal with us. No escaping this. No escaping this. No escape. No one's ready to deal with us. No escaping this. No escaping this. No escape. No one's ready to deal with us.
You are listening to the End of the Bench podcast on Built for This Network, hosted by my man TEODB.
And that's me. Thank you for tuning in to the End of the Bench podcast. I am TEODB. You are listening to Built for This Network on Spreaker.com and YouTube. Thank you for tuning in. We have an interesting show for you this evening. I have a panel which joined by my main man right there, Ray Kev, and a little later we have a few other people. We're going to talk about Black history in America, because we're not going to call it Black history, because when you talk about Black history, America is about a paragraph, maybe even a sentence in Black history. We have literally tens of thousands of years of history before 1619. So, with that being said, without any further ado, I got my man Ray Kev here. Thanks for being part of the show, Kev. What's good, man? How you feeling?
Man, I feel great, man. I appreciate the invite, man. I'm excited for this, man. This is something that's really needed, man, because I learned some things, just researching for the show,
Yeah, man. That's really the pretense of me retiring from talking about sports, because I think, a lot of us, we complain about the state of the community, right? We should do this. We should do that. We need this. We need that. Brothers need to. We hear this all the time. We hear it all the time. We hear it every day, all day. But one of the ways to ensure communal pride is giving people the backstory on the community. So before we start, I'm going to continue. I always start the show the same way. I want to send a shout out to everybody who's listening in the background, as well as the people who are going in on Spreaker.com and here on the YouTube page. You can always tune in at Spreaker.com. Look up Built for This Network. You can always go to Spreaker.com, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Castbox, Deezer, and Podcast Addict, or wherever you get your podcasts uploaded. And as usual, I send out homage to my family, ancestors, and living. That's everybody connected to the Whitmore family: Pollard, Turner, Battle, Cotton, Harper, Bailey, Crisp, Lansdowne, Liggins, Duncan, and me, my mother, my father, my brothers and sisters. We are the Williams clan. We are in the building at all times. Thank you for tuning in. I want to acknowledge Joe. I want to acknowledge Black Swan. And I want to acknowledge Tiki in the chat room. And I haven't gone over to the Spreaker chat room as of yet, but I will go over there. So, Kev, the reason I did this show, as I stated, if you are late to the program, the reason I did this show is this. The reason I did this show is this. It's because today, 365 days ago today, we lost one of our brothers. He transitioned, and now he's an ancestor. You know him as Big George Floyd. He started a communal worldwide uprising. Let's start there, and then you know what? Before we go there, I want to say Happy Africa Day. A lot of people don't even know what Africa Day is, but look it up. I want you to look it up because it's important. It's cool when I tell you something, but when you look at something, I got Jay Ryan on the Spreaker.com side. When you look it up, it is Africa Day. It is a spiritual day for all of us. We are Africans. We're not African Americans. Just like you're your mother's son or daughter. You're not your mother's son by this or that. You are a African. Period. You don't have to claim it, but you are. Point blank, period, full stop. Now, Kev, what are your thoughts on the George Floyd situation? And then we can take it from there and wait on our esteemed guests that are on their way.
Well, I tell you, man, unfortunately, it took his passing and his brutal murder, that's what it was, murder, to kind of open people's eyes to what was happening in the community. The brutality that was being portrayed on our community has been in existence for decades. This is nothing new. It's just that because of social media and the access of social media, we was able to see it. And like I said, unfortunately, it took his death to open our eyes to it, to make it a movement, and that side of it I appreciate, because that's what's needed in this country. Our eyes need to be open, not only to what's happening today, what happened in the past. Unfortunately, you would say, like, you hate history to repeat itself, but that's kind of what's happening. History is repeating itself, and we have to stop it. We have to open our eyes, see what our history was, and understand it's happening again. And as modern people, as people with a voice, where people have access to defense, let's stop this.
Hey, before we move any further, I want to welcome a good brother by the name of EJ. He's one of our esteemed guests that I spoke about earlier. EJ, what I did was start the day off. We are talking about a paragraph or a sentence in history. And that's what American history is when it comes to our community. It's only like a sentence in history. It's not even a footnote, because we got tens and hundreds of thousands of years of history before this. Today is the 1-year anniversary of the, I don't call it a murder, I call it the lynching of our brother George Floyd. What are your thoughts on that before we proceed with the rest of the show?
My thoughts on the 1-year anniversary?
1-year anniversary, yes, sir.
Yeah, well, I just happened to look at this series Underground. So, one of my clients recommended it to me, and I'm over that kind of stuff, but I watched like maybe 15 minutes of the first episode, and I'm watching this enslaved brother be confronted by a slave catcher and also his the plantation owner. And I'm listening to the tone in his voice, how he's talking, how he's begging for his life. He's begging. He reminded me of George Floyd. When he was calling for his mom. And then I'm there. It reminded me, because I just happened to see this disgraceful act with the police down in Louisiana with Ronald Green. And I'm listening to Ronald Green's tone in his voice. How he's begging, hey man, I'm your brother, I'm sorry. And the tone sounded so similar. You see what I'm saying? And so with that being said, and the brother was just talking about how history repeats itself. Yeah, this stuff is still going on, man. These guys are really just modern day, oppressed people catchers. That's what they are. They it's just unfortunate, that Ronald Green, who I don't really know much about, George Floyd, who I really don't know much about, but that these gentlemen had to lose their lives, at the behest of these
wicked individuals.
How else can you put it, man? Crazy people, man. Like, who are these people, man? Like, that they would not honor the dignity and humanity of clearly a human being. So those are my thoughts, man. I'm sad. I'm angry. I just had to give a shout out to Gavin Long and Michael Johnson, man. Those brothers who took it upon themselves to go out and fight back.
Well,
my thoughts, and my two thoughts.
I want to welcome Sabrina Looney and my man John Microwave in the building. I almost gave his government. My bad. To me, it's just another example of what we're dealing with in America today. I'm a firm believer and the ancestors will continue to make us repeat history until we figure it out. It's like, okay, they ain't figured it out yet, and they keep showing it to us. For whatever reason, we continue to support and buy into white supremacy. And up until and including the moment that we put this to a halt, we will continue to suffer one by one. And it's not really one by one. Speak.
Can I say something there, Brian? Because, see, what I've come to understand is it has a lot to do with the language. Because we believe they're white.
Yeah.
When they're not white. That's not even real. You know what I mean? So, like, I think so. Obviously, the way it impacts our brain. This whole caste system, man, is such a powerful function and apparatus that is used to keep us, thinking and keep even them. You know what I mean? Like, even all white people, they think that there's something better than us.
Exactly.
Because of their skin. Like, no. So I think I think the language is huge, and so for me, it's like I have to stop using that language. I can't refer you as white.
Exactly.
You're not white. I'm not black.
Yeah.
So
you're 10 billion% correct. And that's why consistently on my show, I say white isn't even a thing. You didn't become white until you crossed the Atlantic Ocean. I didn't become black until you forced me over here. So there's no such thing as a white man and a black man. There is an Irishman. There is a German. There's an Englishman. There's an African. There's all different shades and hues of Asians. But there's no such thing as a white and a black man. And you are 1 billion% correct in stating that. Thank you. Shout out to you for doing that. And this is part of the problem. Up until we say, this is what it is. And this is what I am standing for. You know the funny thing about this? When we talk about our brother Ronald Green down there who got murdered, and then when you listen to the video, he's hogtied. And for those who don't know what a hogtie is when you are handcuffed by your hands and feet and connected as if you are a beast, and he's not. And you can hear him begging for his life. But this is the thing that pushed me over the top. And if you don't know who Ronald Green is, brothers and sisters, I'm going to need y'all to, again, go to YouTube, look this dude up. This is horrific. This is for y'all who always say, well, everybody ain't bad. And I keep telling y'all, there's enough bad people in the world to make up for everything. Now, this show you how this statement is about to show you guys how inhumane they see us. Now, you got these officers or these Gestapo. They are covered in blood. One of them is wiping himself off. And he says, now this is after beating this man relentlessly, being covered in his blood. You don't think humanity. You go, I hope he doesn't have AIDS. You didn't think I just destroyed a human. You worried about yourself. And as the brother EJ just said, this shows you the state that we're in, because we keep saying, well, if it could be, maybe, it might be, and people who are on the other side will continue to say, this is what is supposed to happen. And this is what I was about to say. Look, when we look at these situations, the George Floyd, the Ronald Greens, the Philando Castiles, the Eric Gardners, and the list, the sister Sandra Bland, our sister who got killed in Kentucky. Can't think of her name right now. Breonna Taylor. When we look at these people, we have to remind ourselves that they don't see us as people. I had a conversation recently, as I spoke about Saturday, with a would-be Trump supporter. And these people they're just equally lazy as us. They look into nothing but want to talk to us about everything. They want us, when someone who's a part of the oppressive state asks you to explain what the problem is, it is literally equal to a rapist saying, "Excuse me, ma'am, how did I violate you? Please explain that to me." So this is why I want to talk about this. And again, EJ wasn't in the show yet. Today is African Day. This is an international holiday for us. This is a day that is supposed to bring about unity. And that's another reason I'm having this show, because without us acknowledging things like Africa Day and things like, see, we know Mother's Day, Father's Day, Christmas, Easter, and they'll come up with another holiday in about 15 years because, hey, I don't remember growing up with Sweetest Day, and then they just pulled that right out of their behind, and now everybody running around spending their money. So we're going to start celebrating things like Black 4th of July, which is Juneteenth, and we're going to start celebrating Africa Day, the 25th of May every year, which is, I'm going to call it Black New Year's. So that's what we're going to start doing. We don't have the time to acknowledge everybody else without acknowledging us. And the fact that most of us don't know about this, most of us don't understand these things, and most of us, like a lot of us, didn't even know about Juneteenth until a year ago, until our brother got murdered. Ironically, he was born. See, this is why I keep speaking about the ancestors. George Floyd was born in the town in which Juneteenth started, right? And then 99 years later, he gets murdered on the 99-year anniversary of the Tulsa, Oklahoma uprising.
Wow.
Would you like to speak on that, Rated Kev, as we move forward?
You know, that's you know, when I first heard you mention that one day, and I thought it was kind of odd, right?
Mm-hmm.
Until I really started thinking about it, you know, and I'm like, that's one heck of a coincidence. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And then I started thinking, you know, it's like a lot of things in life, we wonder where we get these things from. Why did I sense this was going to happen?
Mm-hmm.
Why did I get a feeling that was going to happen? You know? Well, I'm starting to buy into that. I think our ancestors give us signs, letting us know this is something we need to recognize.
Mm-hmm.
This is a date we need to recognize.
Mm-hmm.
This is a moment, you know. These things are being shown to us by our ancestors. And, you know, some people might not buy into that, but listen, I'm going to take whatever I can get from them. You know, we can't change. We don't know the future, so we can't change because we don't know the future.
Mm-hmm.
But we can recognize the history, and we can make changes based on our history. So I'm good with that, and I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, man, I'm forced to bring it up because the thing is, we continue to buy into the would-be education that we receive. And these are the reasons we continue to face these perils over and over and over again. Because most of us didn't even know this. Let me tell you something. I had a guy, former NFL player, good brother, real good brother. I have a guy named Reggie Brooks, He was a star at Notre Dame, graduated with Jerome Bettis, drafted by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and then, Washington Redskins ended his career with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, or one of the two. Those are two teams he played for. He's from Tulsa, Oklahoma. He's maybe a year older than me, 51 years old. He might be 52. Oldest he is 53.
Right.
Reggie grew up in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and didn't even know about the tragedy until he got to Notre Dame. So, and he grew up in that area. See, and this is the trauma that I speak about on a weekly basis. These are the things that we must bring ourselves aware to, because if we don't bring ourselves full circle and face our history, we will continue to be damned by our history. It's this African saying called Sankofa. It is a bird with an egg in his mouth that represents the future. And he's looking back like this to say, hey, I'm looking at the past so I can project the future. So I can be equipped for the future.
Right.
So until we identify what's going on in the country, our past, walk through our history, identify and embrace our history, we will continue to repeat it. EJ, thoughts on the Tulsa, Oklahoma the massacre? And I'm gonna since I was yammering, I'm gonna ask you and Kev that question. Tulsa, Oklahoma uprising or the massacre. What are your thoughts on it then? And do you think it affects us to this very day, and how?
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely affects us today. But again, I think it lends to the idea of what you brought out about, hey, these people see us as beasts or animals.
Mm-hmm.
My retort to that is, what does that say about them? The fact that you can't acknowledge that we're mothers, we're fathers, we're sons. I'm somebody's son, man. You know what I mean? And the way that you can roll up on me and destroy my business as if my people don't have to eat, as if, we don't have to survive out here in this crazy ass world, just like you too. You know what I'm saying? Like, what does that say about you? Like, what does that say about your culture, your style, or what does that say about what has been done to you?
Hurt people.
Like, you see, so those are my general thoughts. However, I'm very sad again and angry to think that, our thriving communities, business communities, families where people thought, hey, well, this is a place where we can go and come up and do what we need to do, and where we've come from, and make a life for ourselves, and then it gets interrupted because of something on an elevator, something like petty. You know what I'm saying? Like, and then now y'all all go and get your guns, and now it's like, hey, let's be cowboys, and destroy these human beings, businesses, and their families, and again, this kind of goes into how it affects us today. Is you threaten violence, you commit violence and traumatize people. You think about the kids who witnessed this, the children who witnessed this, the mothers, the pregnant mothers who witnessed this, who were a part of this, and how it affects their children, and the bloodline, and the DNA, and RNA, and all this kind of stuff. And so I think today it makes people, like Ronald Green said, I'm scared, man. Y'all crazy. You know what I'm saying? Like, I got stopped by 4 white police officers many years ago, man, about 20 years ago. I was coming from work. They pulled me out of the car. I literally pulled me out of the car, but asked me to get out of the car, had me on the back, had my hands on the trunk, and one of the guys felt my heart. And he says, why is your heart beating so fast? Huh? Like, it's for y'all, man. And I'm saying, y'all can do to me whatever you want. I remember when they used to take my cousins and drop them off in rival gang neighborhoods, so they can get beat up and get killed or hurt or harassed. And you asking me why am I afraid? Like, what does that say about the capacity of your mind? What does that say about, your ability to empathize? What does that say about your ability to be human? You see what I'm saying? Like, and if we go back to Farrakhan and the rhetoric of the Nation of Islam, like, hey man, they devils.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, they devils, man. Like, and you know, if you live through these kinds of experiences where, you know, I think even Tim Wise says these are some of the most violent people on the face of the earth, man. You know, if we look at the book of Ishmael, he provides the context of the Genesis story. It says that really the Genesis story is a warning about these people.
Right.
See what I'm saying? So, like, man, so yeah, those are my thoughts. These are some very violent people.
Yeah.
Kev?
Well, there's a lot about this I can talk about, and I can go on for days. So I'm gonna try to make it quick. My first thoughts on how do these people grow up? You know, because where does their mentality come from? Because when you're a child, when you're a baby, you don't know anything about racism. You don't know anything about black or white. You know, you don't know anything about brutality. You know what I'm saying? But it's a constant theme with these people. So it's, you know, is there a secret school that they go to retrain their brain to think that way? You know what I'm saying? I know as a child, I had empathy for people as a child. You know, do they have empathy when they're young, or is this trained out of them, or is it beat out of them, or you know, how does that come about? Because it's not like it's something new. You go back from beginning of time, they have a track record of this type of behavior, and it doesn't change, it doesn't stop. So when you say they're evil, that's not a metaphor. That's reality. That's who they are. They're evil people, you know, and they have a train of the way they are trained. It's consistent because it doesn't, you know, it has survived, you know, generations. So when you look at that massacre in Tulsa, right, and for myself, I think it may have been 3 years when I really knew about what happened, really was exposed to what was happening. And when it happened, I heard about it. I'm like, well, damn, why didn't I hear about this in the past? Why wasn't I taught about this in school? You know, I was taught many other things in school about our history. You know, I was taught about things that, you know, happened overseas that, you know, we, you know, Galilee went over and fought, you know, to protect people. You know what I'm saying? We went over there and we, stopped communism and we stopped this and stopped that. But right there in Tulsa, Oklahoma, these people were bombed. You know what I'm saying? Over a rumor. And that wasn't taught to me in school. You know, I was offended. And it brings back to some of the things that some of our leaders have spoke about in the past. And I really take hold of this. Segregation of our education, I think, was our true detriment to our community and to our history. Because I think our black teachers, if they had freedom to have their curriculum broadened to give us our history, then I would have known about that when I was a teenager. And my views of things would have been different. But they not only did the acts, right? Mm-hmm. They was able to hide the acts, you know? And then when you look at the judgments of a lot of these massacres, white people didn't go to jail. White people were not put on trial. Black people were put on trial. They were victimized. And then say it was your fault. So obviously they don't want us to know. Because if you actually, you know, one of the things on your show one time you said that it's not in us to be vindictive. It's not in our nature. You know, we can go to war and and once we see we have an advantage, we're really going to overcome this opponent. We're going to reach out and say, do you want to surrender? That's not their mentality. Their mentality is to destroy, complete destruction. So if things were portrayed if they were the victims of some of these massacres and some of these acts, how would they respond? You know what I'm saying? Would they just want to be free to have, a good lifestyle, to be left alone, or would they be coming after for blood? You see what I'm saying? And I think that's the fear that they have, that if their history is exposed, what's going to be our response? And I think that's why our history is they're trying to erase history, because they're afraid of what's going to be exposed and what's the response going to be.
With that being said, well, the war tactics that you were speaking of is the Ashanti practices, the Ashanti and the Zulu. The Ashanti and the Zulu, in the midst of war, once they understand that the battle has been won, it is their tradition to allow you to escape. They will leave you a path of retreat, and that's what you were speaking on. With that being said, I want to welcome to the show my man Diallo. Very good, brother. Thank you for joining us, Diallo. How you feel, brother? You there, Diallo? I think you may be on mute on your end. You there?
Hey, I'm here, brother. I'm trying to log in from my laptop, man.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You need a couple more minutes?
No, I think so. I'm getting in now, it looks like.
Okay, good. Man, I want to introduce you to my man Cam and EJ, and of course you know me. Well, at this point, what we're talking about is the Tulsa, Oklahoma massacre, and the results, and basically your thoughts on what happened and how it is affecting us to this very day.
The Oklahoma City massacre?
Mm-hmm. Hold on 1 second. You there?
I'm sorry, fellas. I don't mean to interrupt, man. Be rude coming in like this.
Well, to tell you what, I'll speak. You get everything together, and then and once you hear me in,
I'm good now.
Okay, good.
All right, you say you're speaking on the Oklahoma City massacre and what?
Yes, and how it affects us to this very day.
You know what, man? I don't know, man. Y'all might not be ready from my perspective, man, on a lot of things, man. I'll be honest with you. When you talk about affecting us as black people,
mm-hmm.
I have a completely different perspective on that. I mean, I think all of it affects us. Every single thing that happens affects us. We on the 1 year anniversary of George Floyd, that affects us.
Mm-hmm.
When you wake up in the morning, you have to be reminded of these things. That affects us, man. That affects our relationships with people. That affects our relationship with our kids. It affects how we start our day, how we go into the world knowing that we have to be reminded today. So all of these things affect us. But I'm going to tell you something, man. I have a hard time, man, with reaching back. I only think about moving forward. And the way I survived all of this, man, is I have an approach where I bend the reality of all of it. I don't let any of that stuff affect me, because all we do is we just continue the psychotic cycle of our black community. Therefore, creating a collective consciousness of always reaching back and causing blame with people, and we just have a cycle. So I don't do that anymore. That's no longer part of my father did it. Therefore, he passed down to me. I broke that chain with my kids. I just don't. I don't hold on to it, because that's what's killing us as a community, individually and collectively. And studies have shown that kids that can't do well in math, can't do well in science or writing, the reason why they can't is for one reason and one reason only. It's because of how their consciousness is seeing themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're passing this stuff down and you have a conscious that I am second class, or I'm, even if I do well, I'm not going to get this, or whatever it is that's holding you back, that's going to affect you. So my reality is only about moving forward. So I have a whole different perspective on that. That has worked, mind you. Now, I think that our history needs to be taught that, but I think we have to bend the reality instead of holding on to it. Know what happened, know it exists, but we got to move forward. We have to, because we're killing our future communities by holding on and continue to relive a lot of those things. That's just my perspective.
Oh, first and foremost, D, on here, everybody's opinion is equally valued. I don't need 4 people saying the exact same thing. So you don't have to apologize for feeling the way you do. Well, I will give you a little pushback on that. And I spoke about this earlier. It's called Sankofa. It is looking back so you can develop your future. I don't think as a community, or my purpose in even speaking about this is to hold on to it. I want it to be addressed. I want it to be saying, do you see what happened? Do you see what we're capable of? Now, you see what we're capable of, and you see the threats that are about to come your way. Now, be strong enough to fight those threats and move forward. I don't want to hold on to it because I call it trauma porn. I don't watch murders, the lynchings of our brothers and sisters on TV. I don't watch it on social media. I don't do that because it is trauma porn. It is re-injecting a problem into your system, because I'm a firm believer in what is called epigenetics. No matter what goes on, you pass that on to your children. But I do, and even you spoke about it, I do believe that we need to acknowledge these things happen. Acknowledge these things as obstacles. Therefore, when we move forward and some of these things come back to our purview, we'll be prepared to fight them and move forward. With that being said, I want to welcome Ron. I want to welcome his gift. I want to welcome my man, DJ Mad Knox. I want to welcome Big Illinois, Lauren, Denise, Latoya, and Benita. Thank you for joining. And that's the purpose of this show. I am sick and tired of our history being hidden from us. I am sick and tired because, one of the things that you didn't hear, we spoke about this before you came on, is former NFL player, former NCAA star Reggie Brooks was on my show. He's from Tulsa, Oklahoma. He didn't find out about that until he got to Notre Dame. And these are some of the things I believe if you don't understand what your ancestors have overcome, those very things could rear their ugly heads and destroy you. EJ mentioned getting pulled over by cops and them checking his heart rate, saying, why are you nervous? I experienced the same. He experienced it 20 years ago. I experienced it about 18 months ago when I had a police officer pull me over and flash his camera. Don't worry about it. I got a camera. And because I'm a jerk, I literally said, what that mean? I'm going to get shot on CNN? And, and I didn't mean to be mouthing off, but it was just like, knock it off. So, like you, I don't want to hold on to this trauma. But if we don't acknowledge these things, see, I think acknowledging the Tulsa riots, and one of the things we're going to talk about again, and next up on our agenda is the Red Summer. If we don't acknowledge these things happening, if we don't acknowledge redlining and things like this from our past, we will be damned to continue to repeat them. You can retort, or anybody can have the floor.
Can I say something right quick, H-Rap?
Let me jump in. Okay.
Kev, and then EJ.
I want to come back too.
I certainly appreciate what the brother is saying, that we have to move forward, and I'm all aboard on that, because you don't want that to be a constant reminder that's always on your mind. But what I think is important about looking at history, and specifically the Tulsa situation, after it occurred, there was promises made that the city would be rebuilt, that the families would have some financial recovery from what was destroyed. Never occurred. Never happened. So when these things occur and promises are made, right, we can look back on history just like a kid. When you got a kid that does something bad and you say, look, don't do this again, right? But then they go back and do it again, and you don't correct that, then that's kind of on you. He's testing you, and he told you, I'm going to do better, but he doesn't. So now it's up to you, right? Same thing with history. If we hold these people accountable today, let me back up. If in the past, or wasn't capable of holding them accountable, when it happened today, because history is repeating itself, we have to make sure that they are held accountable for the acts that they perpetrate. Because if we don't, then in their minds, it's like, well, you know what? They're accepting it. I guess we could just continue. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's one of the things about history we have to study. Not only the acts, but what happened afterwards. And how it not only affected us, but how did they approach us afterwards. So we can not have that repeat. The acts may repeat, but our response must change in order to promote change.
EJ?
Got you. So, it is of my judgment that ignorance destroys. You know what I'm saying? When I don't know something, or, when you got a group of people who don't know something, especially when that's something vital to their survival, or as an ingredient to their survival, and their thriving, it obviously can destroy that group of people. Also, you mentioned Sankofa, and being a Sankofa facilitator, being a student and a facilitator of it, the idea of Sankofa is about going back and fetching. You know what I mean? Like going back, noticing something that I've missed and going back and providing that for myself, so that way I can go forward with what I need. So, with that being said, like as we go back into Tulsa, right, and like we see in today's world amongst us is that a fear of these people, right? A fear to retaliate, a fear to defend, a fear to stand up, a fear to, like Diallo said, hey, I made it, but I really ain't made it. You know what I'm saying? Like this looking over my shoulder kind of thing. So when we go back and we give ourselves what we need, right? We go back. So, so I definitely can respect his point in terms of holding on to that fear, trauma, and then that's just all it is. We just compensate. You know what I mean? I think where we've evolved to at this particular point, people are valid. You know what I'm saying? Like, young people are ready, man. They ready to do something about these things. As a matter of fact, just the other day, they was downtown doing something. You see what I'm saying? Like, just disrupting the flow of things. Because I don't blame the people for what they do. Who I blame is the government. The government, like Raider Keith just said, hey, this is how we have a duty to protect this group of people. We have a duty to make sure that this group of people has what they need to survive and thrive as well. So with that being said, the government has definitely dropped the ball in protecting our communities and also providing our communities where this political group of people was what they need to thrive in this country. However, when I look at what the blueprint and the bones of what this country is, it's a caste system. We're meant to be on the bottom. You know what I'm saying? Like, so it's a both and for me. So it's like, hey, I need to go back and I need to fetch and I need to provide myself with what I need, but I also need to go back, you know what I'm saying, and also remind myself and my people as to what the enemy is, what they do, how they, and so that way I can educate my people, my children, on how to avoid or how to overcome or circumvent those particular challenges.
D?
Yeah, I mean, all of those are valid points. EJ and Raider Kev, those are valid. But here is what I see as the problem. All right, so let's just go back a little bit. So let's look at the Sankofa bird, right? The Sankofa bird is talking about, right? Okay, I'm just going to read, right? And this is symbolic because it means everything, right? So it stands with his head turned backwards while his feet face forward, carrying a precious egg in his mouth. Very simple, right? Mm-hmm. Okay? Facing forward, looking back. Mm-hmm. Okay? You can't walk backwards That means that that bird is moving forward by looking back, and that's what we're saying. We're looking back. But the problem is how we're looking back, right? How we're looking back. Are we looking at it, right, from the perspective of, yes, there is obstacles. If you know that there's going to be obstacles or you expect obstacles, you're going to get them, right? There's a few words that I never use in my household, and I never ever, when I'm with someone, I never allow them to use it. If y'all haven't heard this nowhere else. White supremacy, right? You tell me, is that an insult or is that a compliment?
That's a compliment.
That's a compliment, man. And every time I hear a black person use that, what you're doing is you're passing your power back to them by making them feel like it's okay because in your mind, I am supreme. So what that also says is that if you believe that I am supreme, that means that you're also giving me permission to fuck with you and create laws to maintain that superior status. There's a few things that we have to get out of our vocabulary. One is oppression. You cannot use that word around me. I don't use the word oppression because ain't nobody oppressing me. And you mentioned earlier, you said, yeah, like somebody who has made it. No, I haven't made it, but I am making it, and I expect to make it. Why? Because I don't use white supremacy. I don't use the word oppression. I don't need to use the word obstacles. Because when you do that, subconsciously, you're creating an environment, a brick road for yourself, where you're going to have oppression. You're going to have obstacles, and you're going to encounter white supremacy. And that has been a cycle of our black community forever. We pass on our power away from ourselves and say things like, I blame them. I blame that. See, the difference with back in the day when we had, the reason why the universe gave us Malcolm X and Martin Luther King at the same time is because it represented two dualities of our consciousness. One, a nice, docile group of people that does not, and you were mentioning that when I first got on, right? We don't have a history or heart that's made for that kind of violence and turmoil. We don't have that, right? But then on the other side, what happens if you do piss us off? We may come out like a Malcolm X. And the reason why only laws got passed for Martin Luther King is because we passed on that power to Martin Luther King instead of utilizing it and passing it on to Malcolm X. But the only reason why laws got passed is because they didn't want to see two. They wanted to see one type of black person. And that was our fault. That was our fault. We did that. And you see the stories about Martin Luther King where he realized that later on that he may have made a mistake, right? We know about that, right? But the reality is that we have to take ownership of where we are right now today, and we need to look back, move forward, but don't take ownership of what happened in the past. Take moving forward, meaning that how we look at what happened in the past, and take responsibility, our responsibility. Because back in the day, we didn't put the blame on everybody. Everybody got out and they fought for everything they had. Now this new generation is ready to fight, but I don't blame it on them. I don't give it power in the sense that they're ready because of something. They're ready for it because of the lack of religion. Now I'm not saying religion is good because I don't really believe in it. I'm saying that there is less religion in our community, which is now giving rise to a very fearful young group of people.
Fearless.
Fearless. They're fearless, man. They are fearless because they have a sense of equality that we didn't have. They're fearless. Now we just have to channel that in the right way by looking back with the right perspective and utilizing. I think that's how we're going to win or move forward. I don't think we can ever win because we're a minority, but we can at least get to a.
I'm finished. I want to attack that word.
Yeah, win. See, the perspective of win, meaning that it has to be me teaching my son how to look back and move forward. That's what I mean. Collectively, we can have some success, and we have success, but only a few people are allowing that to be a success without looking back and holding on to it.
Before any of them respond, I want to attack that one word you use. That's a trigger word for me, that minority word. That minority thing is a fictitious situation. We're not the minority, D. First and foremost, what if we're going to do is first and foremost, I agree with everything you just said. Love everything but that one word. That one word is the only thing I go because no, not even America, because what we have to do is identify ourselves as one particular thing. And once we identify ourselves as one particular thing, like everybody else, we are not the minority because, as I've stated on shows in the past, there are 12 million people that live in Ireland. There are 50 million people that live in England. There are 60 million people that live in Germany. There's 112 million people that live in Russia. And those are just four that I'm going to name. There are 55 million people that are related to me and you in this country. So it couldn't be 55 million Irishmen, Greeks, Italians, and things of that nature. That minority thing is even debunked by the fact that they continue to chase us as a voting populace. If we were truly a minority, they wouldn't give a damn about who we voted for, because only reason we're 13% of the population is because they count Pakistani people as white now. But if you divide them the way they divide them, we're not a minority. If we add the fact that we're not truly a minority to your way of thinking, at that point we could win, because when you say minority, you make yourself, just like with the white supremacy thing that you mentioned, just like with the oppression thing that you mentioned, when you say minor, you put yourself down. So remove that minority word from our vocabulary, add the Diallo way of thinking, and then at that point, we're even more powerful than you would say we would be. And that's the only thing I disagree with. Anybody else can retort if they.
So if it's a Pakistani, right? And I love what you say, because that's actually what Obama was trying to do. Mm-hmm. He was trying to create more laws for other brown people, hoping that we can connect and create a larger brown population. Mm-hmm. But people didn't really see that because he couldn't be overt with it. But it didn't really happen. That's why Trump came back and said, no more, we're cutting it off. Mm-hmm. That was the reason why. But people don't talk about that because they don't really know that that's what Obama's mission was, to create more brown people. All right? But what you're saying is valid. And when I speak minority, I'm talking about the thinking populace, okay, collective understanding, not the minority like in numbers. Okay. Because on the flip side of that, you also want to add the fact that Pakistanis are included. I work with universities still, even right now, Will, right? And some schools do not count them as any other race but white. Mm-hmm. So here's the problem with that, is that if you're going to allow yourself to be counted as white, then what does that say about your thinking and your belief? So how can we pick them up and add them to a
global majority?
A majority, yeah. They don't want that. They want to be associated with the majority.
They want to be inculcated in the winning class status. Therefore, but that's the only thing I want us. If we're gonna remove oppression, one second, Aaron. If we're going to remove oppression and we're going to remove white supremacy, we also must remove that term minority. EJ, it's on you.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. You know what I'm saying? But I think that there are obviously people on different levels, and obviously everyone on that. It's kind of like, Mario Brothers. Like when you're on Mario Brothers, there's different techniques you have to use to get off that board. You know what I mean? To get to another board, or like Contra. I don't know. I used to love Contra. You have to use to get off the higher levels that you couldn't use. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm, and so I just think that a person on your level definitely needs that type of consciousness. However, everyone is not on that level. You see what I'm saying? And also going back to that piece, because we mentioned that earlier before you got on. Like, it's in the language. When I use the word white, I give them power. I ain't got to add supremacy. You see what I'm saying? All I got to do is use the word. All I got to do is refer to them as white when they're pink. How the hell they white? You know what I'm saying? Like, they not white, right? So, and even when we look at what this guy did, I can't remember his name. What was the guy who created that concept?
Yeah, right after the Boston Tea Party.
I can't think of his name right now. But anyway, she mentions it in Cash in the book. Wilkerson, she mentions No, this is back in the 1700s. Well, was that? That was 1700s.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He was Buchanan. What was this guy's name? I cannot think of his name right now.
I can't think of his name either. But as Diallo stated, he was around the Boston Tea Party. I was amening you and mentioning Diallo did mention this around the Boston Tea Party. I can't think of this dude's name either.
Was it around that?
Yes. Because they had to create their own culture because they had to separate from the English. So that's why they created white.
As we find today, that this is a fictitious. It wasn't based in science, even though they claimed it was.
Yeah.
Who created this was German. Okay, he was a German guy who was endorsed by the British government. These were ideas about, again, these are people we need to be warned about because their notion is, as Ray Key mentioned it earlier.
Kev.
It's not about, just fight and we win. Ray Kev, my bad. It's not about just winning. It's about devouring. It's about making you like me. And obviously, because of our skin color, we can't be like them. So it's like y'all can't exist. It's just like with the Indians, what they said. Thomas Jefferson said, "Hey man, we need to make sure that every last one of them gets eliminated, right?" So that's the mentality that they have. And so going back to this, the minority piece, I was having a discussion with a group that I'm in yesterday. We discovered that all of the new white people, Germans, Irish, Italians, in America, percentage-wise, number-wise, they're less than us. They either like 12.8, 10.9, 5.3. Like, they are really low. So it really helps them to like associate themselves with white. So again, as we continue to use that word, which I definitely appreciate you saying, because again, in my house, we don't use the word white, black. We say so-called white, so-called black, because that's what the political group that we've been associated with. You see what I'm saying? So, and that's one of the reasons why Gaddafi's not here, right? Gaddafi wanted that, hey, let's unite all of these Africans, man. Let's unite all of these brown people, man. And they did not want that to happen. Why? Because again, these are vicious people, man. And I'm not. And don't get me wrong. And I don't want to say that all these so-called white people are that way. I don't think that that's the case. I think that there's a special breed of them. I went to a client's house the other day because I work with a lot of different people. I went to a client's house the other day. She opened the door. I saw her face and I saw her eyes. I said, "Oh damn, she one of them." And I got to do the work. And I said, and as she was moving about her house and she on the phone and picking up the deals. And she talking and she checking on me. I'm like, man, I was right. She one of them. Because I go on to white people. I went to help the white guy yesterday. He went to New Delhi, met him a wife over there. Human rights lawyer, real cool dude. You know what I'm saying? We vibing, we chilling, drinking, coffee. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was cool, but I don't vibe with all of them like that. Just like I can't vibe with all brown skin people do. You know what I'm saying? Because some of them have taken on that mentality. You know what I'm saying? And as the scriptures would say, and I know a lot of people don't believe in religion, and I'm definitely not a religious person. I'm more of a Bible just enthusiast. That was the way I was raised. But I know one of those scriptures that really makes sense to me is say, "Take on none of the ways of your oppressor." You know what I mean? And so for me, like this kind of information that we pass on, let me just finish by saying this. For me, it's about a collective perspective. You see what I'm saying? That bird, you mentioned that bird being in one caption. That's one caption of the Sankofa. You see what I'm saying? Again, being a facilitator, I know what that looks like. It looks like going through the stages of development of an individual, and they have to go back, right, with the correct perspective to be able to give themselves what they need. But that is one caption of that bird. That bird has to go back to get that precious gift. You know what I'm saying? To give itself that. And again, that bird, moves forward. So with that being said, I appreciate the perspective because I think a lot of our people do need to grow up to that point where they realize, man, you really have to take responsibility. if there is a monster or a villain, then there has to be a victim. Which one you gonna be?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Hey, that's powerful, EJ. Right. So if it's going to be a prisoner, there has to be created a warden, right? In the opposite of what in the absence of what is not, what is not. We have been professionals at creating this certain thing to create and manifest something else to support it, and that is what we need to stop. We need to stop right away with that.
Indeed, man, and this is the very reason.
I love it. You say right away.
And this is the very reason I terminated my sports talking career, because these are the things that we need to talk about. We need to talk about empowerment. One of the things I did want to talk about is this. I want to ask y'all a question. Is it time for us, like when you go to Haiti, you had Jewish people down there. There's a Jewish synagogue down there educating them about Jewish history. When you go to throughout the Caribbean and throughout the world, wherever you go, there's a Jewish school. I used to have a co-worker by the name of Nick Kalamato-Sakis. He's a Greek guy. He used to go to Greek school. Is it time for us? Because whether you agree with church or not, whether you agree with the mosque or not, or whatever religious sect that people are a part of, whether you agree with it or not, is it time for us, men like us, men who are forward-thinking men, to say, hey, to bond together and start going into these institutions of worship and say, hey, I'm going to need y'all to do some history classes on Saturdays and educate our people. And as the great John Henry Clark stated, we're not going to do this in 1619. We're going to teach kids that, as I stated at the top of the show, the history of our people in America is literally a footnote in the history of our people. Do we need to say, go to past, I'm not going to say what I was going to insult the pastors, but I'm not going to do that. Is it time for us to go to these pastors and say, hey, Pastor Jacobs, Pastor this, Pastor that, I'm going to need you to set aside some time on Saturday and provide meals for the young people in your congregation and teach them history. So once they see that we come from a continent with over 1,400 languages and over 2,800 dialects, we develop these things, and this is what is instilled in you via epigenetics, and this is how great you can be every Saturday. So you are less likely to be a gang member. You're less likely to go to drugs, because you know inside of you, as Diallo is instilling in his son, you know inside of you, this is nothing but greatness. And what you see on television and on the street corners by your cousin's house or your friend's house or wherever it is, that's just a microcosm of what you can do. That's what you fail at, and this is how you can succeed. Kev, since you're the last person we heard from, you take the floor.
Well, I think that could be a powerful tool, because we just talked about Tulsa, what happened in Tulsa. One of the stories about that whole situation was that this was Black Wall Street. This community was striving independently. It wasn't relying on any handouts. It wasn't relying on any other alternative sources to build itself and to thrive. Okay? So when we teach our children how, with all the struggles they had back then, they don't have a fraction of the resources we have today. And they were able to strive and build a community that was strong, self-sufficient, and wasn't relying on any other outsourced help. Then it gives us power to say we can move forward and do some great things. Because one of the things I think is kind of embedded in some of our young people is that, what is our limitations? What can we achieve? When you talk about some of the things that we need to do, in some of the other shows you talked about, like having our own finance, building up, collecting our money together and providing loans for our, for our own people and not rely on these big banks to do it. Let's finance ourselves, okay?
when you tell a kid today something like that, it's like it's impossible. How can we do that? But when you show them a long decades ago, it was being done with not a fraction of the resources we have today, then you can instill in their mind it is a possibility here if we can attack it. So I think that's where our history, the whole history, and I agree with our brother was saying, you know, that oppression and all negative things that was done in the past, you know, it can really hamper us, and I definitely understand that. But there's some history also back there that can also empower us and give us strength to move forward and give us that belief that it's not just a dream. We put forth the work, we put forth the effort, put forth the planning, that could be repeated also.
Diallo?
You know, and you're right, it can be repeated, but the thing is that there is something, a rule in the faith-based initiative, if I'm not mistaken, that has a little bit of a twist in order for churches to receive funding, and it has tied the hands of the churches in a way where that's why you don't see people like Jesse Jackson and Father Flager, and you don't see a lot of these large religious-based churches, these large mega churches. You don't see them out rallying people and supporting whatever things like George Floyd or any of these murders from the police. You don't see that too. I mean, Flager had this thing where he walked on the highway and shut down the expressway, okay. But they have a certain limitation as far as what they can do because they're being funded by the government, by what the rule is in the faith-based initiative. I don't think it's something like you can't use the religious funds to support religious institutions, but you can support non-religious activities in the church. But if you want to have the church create an environment that's uplifting black people, then that goes against the funding because now you're using everybody's tax money in a way that, well, I'm not going to say that. I'm saying that you can't use because the fear for the church would be losing out on that money. And that's the reality. I mean, that's the only way you're going to have these big mega churches go in these black communities. Like the one on 115th off of 94, right? What's the guy name? I can't remember. Right off
Meeks.
Meeks, yeah. I mean, look at this place.
Yeah. Right off the Bishop Ford.
Yeah, Meeks. That's Meeks. Yeah, you're right. Meeks, yeah. So you look at this place, man. Right? Where that money come from? Your congregation, you'll be lucky to have anybody that make over 40,000 a year. I'm just saying, if you look at the whole average of the whole income average, right? But the thing is that where do you get all of this money? I mean, people are pouring their money into these things. It's not that. They're getting government money. So to set aside a weekend or a time to teach black people how to be powerful, that's something that was tried quite a few times, Will. But I don't know, man. That's one of them things that pastor just may not go for because that's going to take money out of his pocket. From the money that comes from that faith-based initiative. I think it was George Bush or Clinton.
Bush.
Was it Bush?
George W. Bush, not H.W. Bush.
Yeah, so, and that once that happened, that tied the hands of the church to doing a lot of things to further. But I love the idea, and actually, that's what the church used to do.
I know.
Yeah, they used to pay teachers to come in on the weekend and teach history classes like that. Right. You know?
I was one of those kids.
Yeah. So you know, again, I'm a career church guy. I've been pastoring 7 years, I don't know, something like that, right? You know, I grew up in the church, and I grew up with Meeks. I grew up with Larry Trott, and so I've had a lot of exposure with, your high-profile pastors, like Bishop Jakes and Bishop Jones, Jackie McCullough, all of those people, And one of my good friends now pastors for Jakes down in Fort Worth. And, to your credit, Diallo, like what you're talking about, every church doesn't receive federal funds. However, every church is classified 501c3. Okay? You will put your 501c3 at risk if you engage your church under your church umbrella and name under certain activities that are considered to be political. Okay? So, like, when you teach black people that that's political. Believe it or not, that's political behavior. Not crazy, but that's political behavior. That's political behavior. To go out and try to register people to vote, political behavior, right? So, like, yeah, you will risk your 501c3 status, which means that you're no longer tax exempt. And then, therefore, that affects your charitability. You can't really be charitable. And then it also affects, pastor's dollars. Because now pastor got to give more account for his, for that money, right? So, yes, that is definitely a big thing. However, again, I think that there are other ways around this stuff with different ways on how to circumvent the law. And I just think that that's one of the things that we do. The church is not as powerful as it used to be. It used to be the wire, man. That's how I used to find out things. You know what I'm saying? Like, it ain't that no more, man. I try to put my people up on that. It ain't pulling the pull it used to pull. The internet is really the hub. You know what I'm saying? What we're doing right now is really the hub. It's really how people are getting their information and what they finding out what's going on, etc. Church just ain't that, man. And I can tell you that being involved, it's just not that. Now you talk about Meeks, the way he built his church. Now let's just kind of clarify that. Again, that man wrote his congregation. He had a lot of professionals because Meeks was a businessman. He was, in my judgment, and I say this publicly, a horrible preacher. He didn't preach to me. You know what I'm saying? However, he knew how to run a church. He was a great administrator. And he had dentists, he had teachers, he had doctors, he had professionals. And he became community-minded, along with Mr. Trotter, unfortunately shut down a lot of black liquor stores in Roseland. You know what I'm saying? Cleaned up Roseland, quote unquote. From a people. And to your point, a lot of his members ended up being lower class, poor class people. However, he did have a huge population of middle class, blue collar and upper blue collar workers, and that's how they built that church. Are they making the same kind of money they was making back in the 90s in the early 2000s? Hell no. Nope. I guarantee they're not. I don't even know how they paying the bills over there, bro. So I have no idea how you can keep the lights and heat and air conditioning on for that and maintain that kind of property based on the kind of numbers that they're seeing on a regular basis. Then that's just my perspective.
Can I say something, Trap? Look, man, first, it's kind of like ironic, right? Churches can't have politics part of their, teachings, right? But politicians go into the churches when it's time to get their votes. It's kind of ironic, right? But
come on, man.
Because
and it's technically illegal.
Right, exactly. But they do it every time. Every time they're in there.
Every 4 to 6 years.
That's right. But Trap, I know you framed the question as should our churches take the lead and teach our history and if that can't be done, we have to find another way. Because I think that's the only way we can move forward, is to understand our past. So, if it can't be through the church, then it has to be another way. And one other thing about the churches, right? I'm not a big believer in mega churches. And I'm not downing any mega churches.
I am.
I'm saying I'm not a big believer of it. But what I will say about the tax dollars and what they would lose if they was to, not receive the government funds. Whenever you have churches that can afford planes, mansions for the ministers, multiple cars for the ministers, I don't know how much that tax dollar is going to restrict them from actually doing something for the community. That's all I'm saying.
I diss them, but that's not this show. But yeah. But Ready Kev is aware of this. I'm not sure if you and EJ are aware of this, Diallo. I want y'all opinions on this initiative that I'm starting in about 2 weeks.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, because I know a lot of people get churches.
You breaking up. You're breaking up.
Last thing we heard from you, EJ, was a lot of people.
Yeah. The last thing we heard was a lot of people. I think he's frozen now.
I think I'm on a delay.
Yeah. Hey, log out, come back in.
I think my phone is on a delay. I think I'm on a delay, so no worries. You can X-nay that comment. That's all.
Oh, okay. I'm starting this initiative. We consistently complain about things. We complain about unemployment. We complain about lack of employment, and we complain about shortage of funds and opportunities. Right. One of the best, in my opinion, the easiest way to initiate things that are increase all of the above is to invest in ourselves. I promote this app called Official Black Wall Street on a regular basis. Official Black Wall Street is an application that identifies black-owned businesses throughout the world. You drive past them, a notification comes up on your phone. It's a black-owned business. I'm not even sure if you two guys in Chicago, that hotel that's on 26 in Michigan, that's a black-owned hotel. I think it's 26 in state. Most people don't know that. What I want to do is start an initiative.
I know our family real well.
Oh, okay.
The daughter is an AKA. Our family grew up in Burr Ridge. The mother and father still live in Burr Ridge.
Oh, that's dope.
Yeah.
Hey, tell them I want to interview them.
That's how they built themselves up. They educated her. She went to school. I think she went to Whitney Young, the daughter.
Mm-hmm.
Daughter's my age, 49, right? So. But go ahead. I just want you to know I know a little bit of history about them and how they built her up and how they were built up on themselves.
Exactly.
And part of it was to uproot from the collective consciousness that keeps you down.
Exactly. I mean, hey, zero pushback on that. And we'll talk after this because I want to talk about those people. What I want to do is start an initiative of investing in us every month on the 7th, on the 17th, and on the 27th of every month. We need to collectively support each other financially. Seek out black businesses on those days every month. Because if we continue to do this, we can expand those days. And then at some point, those people, like your friends, will have to expand by hiring more people that look like us because they have more of our funds. Because I read this Harvard study 2 weeks ago.
I'm sorry, real quick, Will. I want to hear the Harvard study, but real quick, I'm going to tell you what resonated with me when you said that. If you titled it 117, 27? That's the name of it, 117, 27.
I love it.
That resonated with me right there.
Exactly. I like that. My man, we'll talk about this afterwards. The Harvard study states that we put 2 cents into our community out of every dollar we spend. They said that we would turn our community, we would do a 180 if we put 10 cents in. The quickest way to get to that 10 cents is what was that again? 117.27. 117.27.
Every month has those numbers too.
Exactly. So, thoughts on that? Well, D, you already expressed it, but you can expound if you like. Dan Ernest, Dan Care.
Nothing to say. I mean, I love it. You know, but you segued out of the thing with your app, though. The app was awesome, but I was wondering how could that tie into that, or even for promotional basis, if you own the app.
No, I don't own the app. It's a sister that owns the app. It's been in existence for about 5 years. She's a very progressive sister. It's her get down. I just promote it because I use it. And my job is that's what the title of the show is, Build and Destroy. Build up the community, destroy the lies, propaganda, nonsense that surround us. Anybody want to
I'm sorry, EJ. I don't have an opinion about it. That's just I'm all for it. I tried to commit to it at one time, but I live in the western suburbs now, so it's a little bit. But I can commit to a 117.27.
That's my man. EJ, talk to me. Thoughts?
Obviously with the advent of the internet, obviously we can support each other in so many different ways. Our businesses, because obviously with COVID, it's made a lot of businesses, depend on online modality. So it just makes it that much easier. Obviously, investing and reinvesting our dollar in our communities makes sense. The wealth gap is so huge between the so-called black group and the so-called white group. I mean, it's insane. I think it's like trillions of dollars. That's the gap between us. So if we took our dollars, and I think Raider Kev may have pointed out earlier about integration affecting our community, and kind of being really like a stain in our community because it made us not want black grocery stores, stop making us go to black movie theaters. I think about in Kansas City, the brother down there had started the busing black folks around, and the city of Kansas bought it from him. Obviously, so I know a lot of people are like, oh, we need to put our money in black banks. We need to put our money in black banks, right? Yeah, that makes sense. But when you think about it, right, like if somebody comes to that black bank and courts them, hey man, I give you 25 cents on a penny, and that bank ain't gonna be black no more. You see what I'm saying? Because if you get that many deposits, so I think it's a definitely good strategy. But I think even as we grow in that strategy, we have to be even more nuanced to really build the wealth that we're looking for. Because again, there's a mentality that goes with certain, if I give my money to this quote unquote black owned business, who's to say what this black owned business is going to do with that money? So how do we court them to make sure that they're investing their money with black manufacturers? How do we build black manufacturers? How you know what I'm saying? Like, how do we get to that level where we can keep building up? That would be my only, kind of like not necessarily criticism, but just like how do we build on that idea?
Again, that's the purpose of the conversation. Never doubt, never be upset that you're asking a question like that, because without those questions, there's no need to have a conversation. But how I will retort with that is this. This is why we need organization. We'll never get anywhere, we'll never get anywhere without organization. Diallo mentioned earlier, our ancestor Martin King, our ancestor Malcolm X. They were both terminated for the exact same reason. They started to get closer together in the thought process. Martin King was an immobilizer. He was an immobilizer. Martin King could walk into an empty room and say a few words and it would be crowded shortly thereafter. Malcolm X was an immobilizer. He organized Muslim something incorporated. He started two businesses before he was terminated. When those two guys start getting on the same page, you get organization, and then that's when you have power. What we have to do is do exactly what you're talking about. We need to this is why. What's the name of that app you gave me, Kev? It's like the Black Amazon?
Yeah, I have to look it up. I forgot.
Okay, this is why we must invest in those kinds of companies. Shop with a Black Girl. This is a website that this sister thoroughly vets black women industry. So if you on that website, if you go to shopwithablackgirl.com, she has kicked off several white men who have black wives, and they own the business. They put in her name. They have nothing to do with it, but this is my husband. This is why we have to have organization so we can get to these things, dog. What you're saying is a valid point. We must vet these things, and then if we have organization, what we do is we do just like, I can't think of the sister's name, we do just like her. We go to Diallo and say, Diallo, you have this grocery store. If in the event that we get everybody to go to 117.27, will you in turn increase your staff, or Diallo, you from South Shore, or you from Hyde Park, or you opened your store in Hyde Park. When we start 11727, when you open one in South Shore, when you open one in Inglewood, when you open one in K-Town, when you open one on 14th Street, when you open one on North Avenue, so we can continue to make you rich, and then take us out of poverty simultaneously. That's what we have to do. And that's why I keep saying I don't want anybody who ever comes on my platform to assume you could think I'm the craziest dude in the world. I have very close friends that said that's the stupidest shit I ever heard in my life. And they came back this year and said this shit happened. So if you think it's crazy, say it's crazy. I need conversation. The only way we're going to get better is through conversation. Because for whatever reason, we've gotten to this point where if I disagree with Ray the Kev, we can't be friends no more. And that's what's destroying us, if you ask me. I'm sick of this inability to disagree without being disagreeable. I'm sick of it. So,
I think it has to be the collective perspective.
Yes.
We have to collect perspective together. You know what I mean? So, that's my 2 cents. All right, I'm gonna take a different stand to it, right?
Okay.
So I remember this article that I read. It was on Black Enterprise, and I was trying to look it up, right? And I couldn't find it, but I found an excerpt from the article, right? Mm-hmm. So this is a different spin to what you're saying, right? So here's the reality, right? So you talked about and I can't stay on too much longer, man. My wife put chicken in the oven.
We're about to shut it down now anyway. Yeah.
She put the yoga, so she texted me. So check it out. So here is something, man, that I thought is huge, right? Now, you mentioned about Black empowerment and building up, or how do we establish that wealth and decrease that wealth gap, right? Do you know that immigrants from Haiti, Jamaica, hold on.
Probably Trinidad.
Haiti, Jamaica, Nigeria, Trinidad, Ethiopia. Yeah, I'm going down the whole list, man, right? They have 30% more wealth than American-born blacks. Why is that? And that changes things, because here's the truth is, and that's why we mentioned about not being able to agree and disagree, or disagree and yet agree, right? Mm-hmm. They come here for one reason and one reason only, and we already know why they're here. They're here for one reason, and that's to get educated, right? But then they realize how sweet it is, and they stay. Their income is 30% more than the American-born blacks. So what does that say, right? I'm going to tell you what it says. It tells me that if they can bring their ass over here and forget and not be bothered with all of that stuff that we have been hampered with for so long, what they did is they bent reality in a sense by not focusing on that and focusing on one thing: get education. That's what I'm here for, right? And once they have risen up in that, by going to tech school and getting this education, what happened is they have built themselves a nice little nest egg and lifestyle, right? Mm-hmm. You remember Najee, right, Will?
Yes.
Prime example, right? So here's the reality.
Keshi.
Here's the reality, right? They have come here on their families, with their families, right, and built wealth, bypassing all the stuff that we're like, the white man, right? And they have mastered an ability to be successful. Think about how often an African immigrant has been killed or pulled over and end up getting killed in America. You're not going to see those numbers because they learned how to bend the reality. We are so emotionally caught up with looking back and recognizing the pain, the struggle, the oppression, the white supremacy that we've been holding on to for so long that it has limited our opportunity for success. But at the moment that we associate with those people, the moment that we build up and forget and let that go,
is the moment that we take one big step forward and recognize our opportunity. Because ain't nobody thinking about white people but American-born black people. And that is what's limiting us every single day from the time we wake up to the time we go to sleep and what we pass it on to our kids. The moment that we recognize that and let it go and take advantage of all these American opportunities like all these other immigrants come and do, we will now be free and build our own and decrease that wealth gap. But the moment that we're not taking action, and with the minute that we're still holding on to the 30s, the 40s, the 1800s, the 1900s, the moment that we let that go is the moment that we have now established a sense of equity and built power within ourselves. Because ain't nobody holding it back from us now. You can be as educated as you want to be. Ain't nobody holding that back from you. Harold Washington College is damn near, $30-something a credit hour or whatever, maybe even less. Now schools are even free. And these immigrants are coming here, man, and paying cash for this and getting $80,000 tech degrees after 2 years. Because you don't need a bachelor's degree to have a lot of these jobs, right?
You don't need a bachelor's degree in anything, and you don't need a degree in tech. You just need to be able to do it.
Yeah, but what's happening is that by us looking back, and I'm not saying anything is wrong with that. The Sankofa idea is proper, but what I'm saying is that it is still pigeonholing us into a certain state. And our neighbor and that collective consciousness in that community is creating a cycle, and that is what is being targeted all the time, every day, until we bend that reality, man, and move forward. We're going to continue to have that cycle. We got to take advantage of this wonderful American opportunity we have. Get the knowledge, get the education, and that's it. Nobody cares if you're black, white, or what you look like in tech, because they don't nobody see your face anyway. Studies already showing that. You got all kind of people in tech. You call the Indian guy all the time. He right in the middle. And they living in Lombard. I'm telling you right now. I live in the western suburb. They all in Lombard. And guess who else living out there right with them? The black people, the Africans, the ones from Haiti. They all out here. And they got crazy jobs. They got the BMW car club, Ferrari club. I see them. I'm like, man, what you do? Oh, you know, I came here to but yet we living on 63rd saying, hey, white girl is good. They good because they heard it from the daddy, they heard it from the grandmama, and they can go outside and they hear it from the neighbor. Until we break that chain, man, right, that consciousness is going to kill us. And the consciousness that you hold is your identity. The great I am is what you think and believe of yourself. If you change the narrative on how you see yourself when you look in the mirror and believe it, it shall be done unto you. And that's the truth. I say.
I want Kev, and then EJ for your parting thoughts. Thank you for those parting thoughts. And then I'm going to shut it down.
Well, you know, piggybacking on that, and I definitely appreciate that perspective. You have to change your way of thinking. And I agree with that. And we can use the examples of those immigrants and how they think and how they approach and attack the system in a way that's extremely efficient. I totally agree with that, right? But one of the disadvantages that our young people have is that they don't see that. They don't understand that because they have been trained to think a certain way. And it's not just about us. It's about a total system. It's about TV. It's social media. Everything gives them a certain perspective on not only what they're capable of, but how they should think. So when that has been, drilled in their mind as youngsters, because there was a study I seen one time when they looked at children. We're talking about first, second graders, and they asked them key words. What do you think of white? What do you think of black? What do you think of these things? And the negativity that they got from certain images, it boggles your mind. How did that come about at such a young age? So the Africans, people who are overseas that come over here, they wasn't trained that way. They didn't see these same images. So their mind is not limited to what they can achieve. They see the opportunity
and they go after it. Because in their mind, there's no limitations. You see what I'm saying? So that's the chain that we have to break. And I think that, you know,
Right.
I go back to history. I'm not trying to like just pound history as the answer. But what I'm saying, it could be an example. Because, you know, a lot of our history is such negativity. But the positive is so much higher. We have achieved so much in this country with so much on our backs. And that has to be exposed. That has to be explained. That you are not limited to what someone else says you can do. We have no limitations in our brain. What our brain is capable of is endless. But the way of thinking of our children is that it's limited. We can only go this high. I can only get a high school education. That's all I can achieve. What's expected of me should be I should have a master's degree. But our children say, hey man, if I graduate from high school, I'm the G, right? Because that's what's ingrained in us. If you make it to 15, 16 years old, you've lived life. You see what I'm saying? So the limitations, I think, with understanding our history and breaking that chain. And I love what you're saying. We have to break that certain images, certain phrases in our vocabulary, certain things we must break. Because that's going to help that cycle of recurring, just pushing us down. It could break those things. Now, I totally agree with it. Oh, let me give you an app. I'm not going to try to pronounce it. I don't want to butcher it. It's like A-Trap was saying. It's like Amazon. It's like a black Amazon. Okay, and it's online. It's MIIRIYA. It's MIIRIYA. And what they do is they promote black businesses online. You can order from them just like you do on Amazon, and it's very convenient. Right there on all, it's an app you can download, and it's great. And one other thing I want to say before we move on, black businesses, and we're holding them accountable, right? And I think we should hold them accountable. If we build black banks, like what is it? A-Trap
One United, largest black-owned bank in the United States of America.
Right. We build these banks up, build these businesses up, put money into these black-owned businesses. We have to hold them accountable. I like what you say there, A-Trap. We need to have some type of organization to say, okay, we built you up. Now, what you're gonna do for our economy? What you're gonna do for our people? But here's one key, and this is the thing that people may not wrap their mind around. The alternative is going to Chase and putting our money into Chase. What is Chase doing for us? Putting our money in Bank of America. What are they doing for us? So if we're gonna say, look, One United, I ain't put my money in that bank because they ain't gonna do nothing for us. I know they ain't gonna do nothing for us. But Chase ain't doing nothing either. You see what I'm saying? So look, it's not just about criticizing and holding our people accountable. That is necessary. But also, let's look at the alternative. The alternative isn't just giving up and saying, I'm just going to put my money wherever, my individual needs are concerned. Let's give these people a chance. Give these black-owned businesses an opportunity. You know what I'm saying? Give them an opportunity.
$127.17 in every black-owned bank.
Right.
And then when they fall short, then we can hold them accountable. So that's my perspective on that.
EJ, closing, parting shots.
I say.
Yeah, so my parting thoughts are, I'm fortunate, man. Ever since I was a kid growing up in church, man, I always wanted to, be a healer. I looked at Jesus like, man, Jesus can heal. I wanted to heal, And that journey has been unlike what I had imagined it being. You know, I thought I was going to be putting my hands on people and people were going to be getting well. You know what I mean? But that journey has led me to working with people's minds. Shadow work, which I work white people, black people, Hispanic, you know, whatever, man. But what I've come to understand is that it don't matter, black, white, or whatever, man. All of these people have limiting thoughts in their minds because of some adult, some person who they respected and loved, said something to them, and they created a message around that, and that message persists, right? And so we have to regress that, you know, and take these people back so that way they can change that message and give themselves what they needed so that way they can come forward. I love what all of you guys are saying, man. And I think what is really bubbling up to the top, and I think it's really the ultimate mantra and the ultimate consciousness that really needs to be propagated throughout all of our conversations. When I look around me right now, everything that I see came out of somebody's mind. Even the phone I'm holding, the pictures that I'm looking at, somebody's mind did that, right? And so being able to really get in there and work with people's minds it's a privilege, one, to be able to do that. You know what I'm saying? But second of all, it's such a huge responsibility because a lot of people don't realize that their minds is the one that's sabotaging them, working against them. It's not the world outside, you know, kind of like what Diallo was saying. And that's very hard for people to grasp. Because it's like, it's got to be the white man, right? It's got to be the government, right? It's got to be, you know, but it's really not, man. Because, again, we think about what the mind can do. The ability of the mind for us to be able to survive, 3.5 billion years, right? That's an amazing feat, right? Obviously, along with serendipity and the ancestors, spirituality, and all that kind of good stuff helps as well. However, but it's our minds, man. You know what I'm saying? That does it. So I just want to, you know, again, you know, just really stress that, man. That we got to get our minds straight. I love what I end with this. What Denzel Washington says in that movie, The Great Debaters, when he's talking to that Nate Parker, he says, you know, well, where you come from? Who are you? He said, look here, man, the only thing you need to know about me is that I am here to help you reclaim and redeem your righteous mind. And with that, I'm out.
Man, thank you. And man, I want to thank you three brothers first and foremost. And I'm going to end it with this. I don't want to go into a long diatribe, but I just want to touch on what each and every one of you said very quickly. Education is the key. And education does not only come from an institution; it comes from just being around people. That's why I'm starting a second project about our talking to our elders. Every time when our elders transition, a library burns to the ground. Because they got about 150, 200 years of history in their head, and it's not being tapped. This is why I push history. When Kev talks about history, this is why history is so important. What we've done as a collective community is focused on the wrong things. 10%, not even 10% of the population uses and abuses drugs. But we think our entire community is covered by drug dealers and gangbangers and nefarious people. That's not true. Not even 10% of the population is incarcerated or participating in criminal activity. And if you look at your history and you know your history, if you first and foremost you get educated on who you are and what you are, you look at your history and see what you've accomplished in the past, and then you can use, as Ernest said, the collective perspective to elevate yourself and move forward. If you don't do that, you're wasting your time. You'd be like what W.E.B. Du Bois said right before he died. If you do not identify who you are, you will be subjected to other people's imagination. So what we're going to have to do is use organization first and foremost. We need to organize. You need to talk to everybody on your community. No more of this nonsense about, I don't know my neighbors, I don't want to be bothered. Because that's why your daughters are being kidnapped. That's why your sons are being accosted by gang members and other violent people, because you don't know who's next door. Because if you knew Diallo lived next door, if you knew Kev and EJ lived next door, guess what? When they hear something crazy, they looking out the door to protect you and yours. So what we're going to have to do is, again, get organization, and continue to have adult conversation. This conversation is not just for men, it is for human beings. So unless we are prepared to meet and greet the people in our community and reestablish that village, we will continue to chase this foolishness and over-index in the thought of violence in our community, which is all but non-existent. This is why I do the show. This is why it's called Build and Destroy, because I want to build up our community, destroy all the lies and propaganda that surround our community. And this is why I close every show with this. Well, I usually have it in the middle of the show, but I didn't want to stop the flow of the conversation. I bring about something about our history that is insanely important. With that being said, before I show the video, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. And again, you can catch us on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Podcast Addict, Deezer, iTunes, or wherever you download your podcast. Or you can go directly to YouTube at theendofthebench.com. Or you can go to theendofthebench.com and get this because it's streaming right now live. And you can go to the End of the Bench on YouTube or Built for This Network on YouTube as well. Thank you for tuning in. And as I say every week, dream those. I get this from Reggie O'Shea, aka Combat Jet. Dream your dreams and man up and woman up and live those dreams. Because life without dreams flows in black and white. Life without dreams flows in technical. Life with dreams flows in without dreams flows in black and white. Life with dreams flows in technical and surround sound. And with that being said, 2 fingers, 1 word. This HRAP-B. I'm out.
Proponents of the idea that Africans or black people were in the Americas before Columbus sometimes point to the legend of Queen Calafia as evidence. However, most people are aware that her story derives from a Spanish novel. Her legend is very entertaining, but what I find interesting are the rumors about her myth being the origin of the name California. It's Home Team here, and I'm back at it with another video of African history, culture, and worldview. And if you'd like to support the Home Team on these videos and future animated projects, you may do so on Patreon.com. Also, go to Afrographics.com, a website where you can gain resources and illustrative infographics on African history. All links are in the description box below. The legends of the Amazons have intrigued many novelists and young impressionable minds. The existence of the Dahomey Amazons and their exploits were the inspiration for the Dora Milaje in Marvel's Black Panther. Ancient Greek historians have even spoken about legends concerning African Amazons. So it's no surprise that a 16th century novelist decided to use these myths and legends to write his own story. Queen Calafia was mentioned in a Spanish romantic novel, Las Surgas de Esplandian, or The Exploits of Esplandian. The story was about an attack on Christians who lived in the Turkish capital of Constantinople. During the battle, Queen Calafia helped the attacking forces. She was described as a warrior queen who came from a place called California. According to the California African American Heritage Preservation and Restoration Society, Queen Calafia is common knowledge among professors of medieval literature. The myth of Queen Calafia used to be a sort of secret code among poets and sexual rebels, at least until the secret went public in 2001 during the renovation of Disneyland. One addition to Disneyland, called California Adventure, lies a theater decorated with a mural depicting Calafia. Inside, there's a brief widescreen film called Golden Dreams with the voice of Whoopi Goldberg as Calafia, the Queen of California. After her exposure to the world, this mythical black queen became a sort of symbol for the newly multicultural California. The Spanish romance novel The Exploits of Esplandian was published in 1510 by Garcia Rodriguez de Montalvo. He wrote it after his tremendously popular Amadis of Gaul. Montalvo gives us details about the queen. Know that on the right hand of the Indies exists an island called California, very close to a side of the earthly paradise, and it was populated by black women, without any man existing there, because they lived in the way of the Amazons. They had beautiful and robust bodies, and were brave and very strong. Their island was the strongest of the world, with its steep cliffs and rocky shores. Their weapons were golden, and so were the harnesses of the wild beasts that they were accustomed to taming so that they could be ridden, because there was no other metal in the island than gold. In his book, Montalvo tells us that Queen Calafia helped the Muslims when Constantinople was being attacked. She raids an army with a large fleet of black women riding on griffins. In the novel, Queen Calafia is captured by the Christians and converts to Christianity. She then goes on to marry a cousin of Esplandian and returns with her army to California. Now, the thing that brings the legend of Queen Calafia into reality is her influence on the name of California itself. A Spanish conquistador named Hernan Cortez explored the northwestern part of Mexico in 1536 and discovered the California Peninsula. Apparently, Cortez was a fan of romance novels and got his hands on Montalvo's book about Queen Calafia. In his novel, Montalvo mentions that one of the precious stones on the Queen's Island were pearls, and legend has it that Cortez found pearls during his expedition. Believing that he had discovered Calafia's island, he named it California in her honor. Now, an expedition Cortez ordered just 3 years later proved that the so-called island was actually a peninsula, but the name California remained. Now, even though it's mostly a legend, many people agree that the state of California was indeed named after the Queen Calafia legend. But there are some who still subscribe to the term Calida Fornax or hot furnace as the origin of the name California. Regardless, her importance as a symbol for the spirit of California is undeniable. Queen Calafia continues to be depicted as the spirit of California in modern-day sculpture, paintings, stories, and films. There's even a remarkable panel of the Black Queen with her Amazons at the Mark Hopkins Intercontinental Hotel in San Francisco. There is absolutely no denying her influence. Well, I'm all out, guys. If you like these videos and would like to help out in its continued production,
love it.
Please consider supporting the home team on Patreon.com. The link is in the description box below. Know thyself. Remember your ancestors. Peace.
We back. Oh, and we gone. Wait a minute. 1 second. 1 second, Kel.